Thank you for being here and welcome to our Red Sea 360 program, co-organized and co-curated by the Red Sea Souk in association with Winston Baker. I'm Carol Medzer, Red Sea 360 manager, and our third panel for today will cover the current streaming challenges. I'm pleased to welcome on stage Tim Dams, European editor of film industry title at Screen International. With over 25 years of experience reporting on the film and television industries, Tim has previously written for titles including Broadcast, Televisual, Variety, Television Business International, Backstage, C21, and Makers. So I'll let Tim introduce the panelists. Thank you.
Right, thank you everybody, and welcome to this panel, Streaming Challenges, the Evolving Digital Landscape, and What's Next for Streaming. I'm going to introduce the panel in just 1 second. I'm just going to say a little bit about it first. Now, we all know that it's a very exciting, fast-changing time for streaming. New services are launching all the time. There's fantastic content being created. Traditional TV services are being disrupted. But it's also incredibly challenging. There's intense competition, questions over the business model of a lot of the streamers. Netflix's share price is down nearly 50% this year, amid concerns over content expenditure. And we're going to discuss all of this and more and try and work out what next for streaming. And to do that, I've got a fantastic panel here. To my left is Natasha Matos-Hemingway, who is the Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer of Video On Demand Shahid, of Shahid, which is the streaming service of Saudi-owned NBC Group. Then I have Rohit De Silva, who's the Chief Business Officer, Middle East and South Africa for Hong Kong-based pan-regional streamer View. To his left is Karim Safeddine, who is the founder and executive producer at Cinemas from Lebanon, which is a video-on-demand service for and from the Arab world. And Giacomo Dursi, who is a screenwriter and head of development at Italy's Pica Media, which is part of the Asasha Media Group. So, just to kick off, I'm going to ask each of the panelists just to give us a quick introduction to their services and what they do. So, Natasha, can you just tell us a little bit about Shahid and specifically kind of where it fits into the Middle East marketplace?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So, Shahid, we are the streamer of NBC Group. We are a hybrid, so what that means is we've got an AVOD side to our business, so it's advertiser funded, and also an SVOD side to our business, which is subscriber driven. We are, by a number of external reports and analysts, the #1 streamer in the MENA region. And we belong to the NBC Group, which of course has been operating in the region for over 30 years.
Thank you. Rohit.
Hi, my name is Rohit De Silva. I work for a streaming service called View, VIU. View launched in Southeast Asia, that's Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Hong Kong, Indonesia in 2015. We launched with Korean content, and we launched as an AVOD and an SVOD service. And at that time, everybody laughed at us because everyone was trying to copy what companies in the West were trying to do in emerging markets. But here we are today. We have over 60 million monthly active users, including 8 million of them in the Middle East. We produce content in all our markets. We've been in Middle East for the last 3 years, and we're delighted to be here and be part of this conversation. And I want to, again, thank the organizers for putting together, which is a truly remarkable event. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karim Safieddine from Cinemas. We're a MENA streamer that is completely AVOD, that's been active for 10 years in the region. We're absolutely free for all of our viewers, absolutely advertised, backed, and based, which we're a bit different than everybody else in the sense that we don't operate with a library model. We only have 5 films a month that everyone gets to watch for free. These 5 films are the first window that users can find before iTunes and everybody else on the panel, but for a shorter period of time and for free. So that's our little difference. We're also a production studio that produces original Arabic content and services that content either on our own, distributes it either on our own platforms or services it for the global streamers who are looking to produce original Arabic content.
I'm Giacomo Durzi. I'm a screenwriter. In these weeks, I have a show released on Sky Europe. Previously, before joining Pico Media and the Sasha Media Group, that is a new group of owning a panel of 9 companies around Europe, 2 in Italy, 3 in France, 2 in England, and so on. I was a consultant for the Sky Originals and I overviewed a lot of series so I used to have my shoes both in the commissioner's point of view and in the writer's, producer's point of view. And yeah, it will be very challenging as well to talk now today.
Thank you anyway. Well, Natasha, maybe I can ask you first, just to paint a picture of the Middle East streaming market in terms of how you fit in the competition, how you think it compares to other international markets, perhaps.
Well, it's so we are, as I said, I think we one of the leading streamers, if not the leading streamer in the Middle East region, which is something that we're incredibly proud of, particularly as more international competitors move into our market. So if anything, I think it's becoming quite a crowded market. We've had some big competition come in, and we've also had a lot of local, smaller streamers become, a lot more active in the market. So it's obviously something that we watch very closely. In terms of characteristics of the market or things that we are very aware of, I think, we were having this discussion earlier, globally everything's starting to kind of converge a lot more, but I still fundamentally believe that in our market there is a real desire to have local stories told very authentically, and that's certainly where Shahid plays a very important role, and making sure that the cultural sensitivities of the region are captured, and that we are delighting our users by making that available. Other kind of components that I would say are very specific to the region somewhat is something like piracy, for example. Piracy exists in all markets, but I think it's very much entrenched in the Middle East, and so that's something that we are always very aware of, and in our business models, in our go-to markets, in everything that we do, we're very aware of that. I lead anti-piracy for the NBC Group, so I get stuck in those quite a lot. And then I think one of the things that is incredibly important in our region is price sensitivity. So we're one of the few streamers who prices specifically for each market. So we're very cognizant of affordability, and we price differently in North Africa as to what we do in GCC. And we do that on purpose because we want to make sure that A, we understand the markets, B, we are putting forward a product that makes sense and that's affordable to users to subscribe and to consume.
Can I just ask, who do you see as your main competition in the region? Is it other local players, and if so, which ones? Is it international players, and if so, which ones? How do you position yourself against?
Everyone's my competitor.
YouTube.
YouTube, that's interesting, YouTube.
Quite a number of players, but yeah, we look at all of them because we look at the segments that we specifically want to grow in. And so YouTube's a huge competitor in some segments. International players are huge competitors in other cohorts. So we look at all of them quite specifically, and we try and tackle the ones that are going after our segments in very specific ways.
And Rohit, how about you? How do you position yourself, and how do you see the competition? What's your competition?
So if you look at the market in general in the Middle East, right, I think like Natasha pointed out, you have extremely well-run local giants, and I'm a big fan of what the NBC Group has been doing for the last 15 years on television and now on streaming. On the global competitors, they're all there, and then you have regional players like us, and you have various players in various markets. But the key point is, it's not about how many people are there, but it's about who's doing what and how, right? So you may have a global player, but they're not doing that much in the region. we're a regional player, but we financed over 30 series in the region. There may be other local players, regional players. Natasha probably does 30 series in a month. I can't afford that. But, it depends on what you do and how you do, how entrenched you're in the ecosystem. The other thing, before we get into the marketplace, it's more about the consumer, right? So from a consumer's perspective, the consumer in the Middle East has been used to getting extremely high quality content, because free-to-air has been the dominant medium in the region, right? So you have an interesting dynamic at play where you have consumers, where users in the GCC, who have the ability to pay, but because they have been getting content or very high quality content for free for many years, they don't feel the need to pay. So as an ecosystem, we have that challenge, whereas in some other markets, where you look at North Africa or some of the other countries, you do have the price sensitivity issue. So it's a combination of factors which is making this market very interesting. It's interesting because it's not an easy market to crack, whether you're an international player or you're local. For the local giants, they've been in there for much longer, so they know a lot more. But it's a very dynamic market. But it's great that we have the industry players, right, who are all trying to build out some level of a subscription layer. Because the challenge I have with this market, right, and this is my second time living here, one is the size of the advertising market is very small. For a market which is 300-400 million plus people, it's small. We need that to grow. We need subscription. It's hard to grow a streaming ecosystem when there is no subscription. So I think efforts are being made in this direction. Collectively, we're all putting in a lot of effort. And these efforts will hopefully bear more fruition, because at the end of the day, we need more to be able to tell more people. There's so many stories to be told, and there's an opportunity to do all of that. But the ecosystem and the market needs to evolve, and it is evolving. In the last few years, I've seen some extremely positive changes, and I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Karim, how has the market changed since you started your service? I mean, many years ago now, you were kind of a real pioneer in this space.
Yeah, I think we witnessed the market change from a point where we were just waiting for it to evolve. So to bounce back on what Rohit said, subscription is an issue for us, in the sense that when we launched, half of Egypt, of the viewers we were targeting in Egypt, didn't own a credit card. The ones who did, 3% were using it on e-commerce. Out of those 3% on e-commerce, 0.2 was on media, mainly on iTunes, buying music and albums, and Spotify subscriptions and stuff like that. So you would have a massive, 300 million plus potential viewers with a dwarf subscription target, and over a dozen services targeting that tiny market. So what we did was, to this day, we pledged to never make anybody pay for what we present on our service, and for us to adapt to that demand. So we don't really look at our viewers as consumers. We look at them as an audience that is alive, that is, with the collapse of two myths, we were able to position ourselves. So the first myth is one destination for all. I think this is what everyone, when they launched the service, thought would be possible. You buy a huge library of films, update your series quarterly, and you can get a regional or national market. Wrong. Doesn't work like that. The second myth is that the Middle East is one homogeneous, one language territory. Wrong again. The Saudi audience is sensitive to some things. The Palestinian, Lebanese, Moroccan, Algerian audiences are sensitive to other types of content. And I think that the providers of these services have to be as sensitive to these cultural differences. So that trifecta basically positioned us, I would say, in between a YouTube and Shahid or a Netflix or a more traditional service. And for me, there's much more opportunities than challenges. Maybe the title of the panel should be a bit tweaked, in the sense that the challenges are behind us, even for the big guys, the regional ones. The main challenges, we believe right now, are for the global streamers entering regions.
Well,
if I could make a controversial point on that one, I agree with you. And one of the things that I forgot to mention was exactly that. You know, the myth that this is a homogeneous region is incredibly incorrect. And it's something that we really work hard at to understand exactly what do the audiences want to watch, how do we make sure that we are relevant at a market level. So that's an incredibly important point. But to be controversial on what you were just saying, on the flip side to that and turning it to content perhaps, we've learned this in Egypt, and actually in my previous gig, we used to have the same concern in Nigeria. You know, there's no credit cards, there's no affordability. But trust me, I mean, you put one good piece of content out there that everyone wants to go and watch, they find credit cards somewhere and they come, you know, in masses to consume it. So I think that there's probably a bit of grey.
There's a space for everyone. I'm just saying that the cake has to be well seen and divided that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jack, I'm wondering whether you could provide a European perspective, actually, and just hearing what you've heard there, if you could perhaps provide a perspective of what you've kind of witnessed of the streaming market in Europe, and how what you've heard just here might compare with the European market.
Yeah, well, it's pretty complicated to answer and figure out all of that, even because we are constantly under siege. We are, as writers and producers, and trying to figure out what commissioners want, what's their strategies, what are their strategies, and so on. I think that what we witnessed, especially in the last 8 years after the arrival of Netflix, that was a huge turning point for all of us. In Italy, Netflix arrived, let's say, in 2017. I made one of the first Sky Original shows that was Baby, that was a big success, a teen drama for them. And I was at the same time also consulting for Sky. And we were thinking that at Sky, at that time, Netflix was not a problem. That was not something that the Italian audience and the European audience more would have gone easily with, would have bought easily with. Because it's a huge supermarket, European audiences. The way we thought we have fed them, especially at Sky, with our originals, you have to remember that at Sky was made one of the series that was a really game changer, that was Gomorrah. After that, there was the pre-era of Italian television, that was the free TV, Rai and Mediaset with it was a huge industry because we were producing a lot, but in terms of content it was pretty shallow, let's say, not very challenging. And Gomorrah became an international success. And we had this recipe that was easy to say. We were saying, you see guys, global is the new local, we were used to say. And we were always thinking that that was the right recipe to go on and on and on. Then Netflix came, everything started to change. Writers and producers in Italy and Europe were, thrilled. And how to deal with them was not easy in the first time, because there were not people from the region, and so you had to deal with people who didn't know the country, didn't know the narrative, the storytelling of our country. So it wasn't easy. Then little by little they started to build up structures and so on. But what I'd like to say is that now it's a total Game of Thrones. And to figure out what's going on, it's not easy. I think that we are already, if we have experienced the cable, first the free TV television, then the cable television, then the post-cable television, and the streamers television, we are definitely over into post-streamers TV era, I think. Because now the only rule is that there are no rules. If governments and the politics are not going, and in Europe, they say that we are strict to the copyright things and so on. We are trying to push them not to expand, and it's a war. It's a constant war, yeah, definitely.
And just coming back to the kind of Middle East, but the presence of the big international players, Netflix, Disney, etc. What do you see the future for them really? Because they've obviously made a big splash. They've done very well. but they are these big kind of global kind of content libraries. They are doing some local content. Can you fight against these very deep-pocketed players? Have you got the ability really to see off or coexist with these global streaming platforms? I don't know, maybe Natasha?
I can take that one. Yeah, I think that we will, we have to coexist. I don't think we have an option, neither them nor us, to be fair. I think that they will continue to play in the market and dabble here and there, but I suppose if I were them, I'd carry on focusing on what they're good at, which is, Western content that has a lot of travelability. And I think that they'll continue to do that and test and learn. And I think what we've learned by observing, the Netflix and Disney kind of arrays into other markets is that they're going to start being a lot more focused in where they invest. And I think that would probably be the smartest thing for them to do. For us, I think we punch above our weight when it comes to our platform experience, even though we are a local player, and our originals perform incredibly well. We tell the local stories in a very authentic way, and I think users will continue to come to Shahid for that, because they know that only we can really do justice to our local stories, whereas the international streamers can't. But they will probably go and spend some time on the international streamers as well, because they want to be, consuming content that is traveling and that people are talking about elsewhere, and use that as a complement to the viewership that they achieve from Shahid.
Just to add on to that, I'd like to give you guys a bit of context about Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, we've been competing head-to-head with not just the Western global players, likes of Netflix, Amazon, and Disney, but also the key players from China, Tencent and VTV. So this is in terms of a category. Streaming is a category no matter which market you are in. It's a growing category, and that's why there are a lot of people who want to be there. It is not the future of media, it is to the today of media. So competition is inevitable. For a regional company like ours, we've been able to be in the top 3 on all parameters in all these hyper-competitive markets where there are global players from East and from West. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is that if you stick to your lane and focus on what you're good at, so whether it's producing certain types of content, going to market with a particular type of model, playing to your strengths, whether it's telco relationships, any of those things, you have serious amounts of capital to back you. This is a business you can't be in if you don't have serious capital, right? And you choose your markets and put your capital there. I mean, I'm just talking from the results that we've already had. So I don't, it's not about even how we will compete. This is about how we are doing it. In the Middle East, I think there's a huge opportunity, because if you stick to a particular type of thing where you can be good at, right? And if you even talk about how content has evolved, the Korean content, for example, 5 years ago, if you told people about Korean content in the Middle East, they'll be like, what is that? Now, thanks to BTS performing in the kingdom, thanks to a whole lot of things happening, Squid Game and the like, certain niches have become bigger. So, I mean, whether it's what you're doing, Kareem, or whether it's whatever model you have, if you find a way that you can be really good at what you're doing, you will be able to compete, right? Because the global players have their own priorities, and thanks to, there's a whole bunch of rationalization that's happening, which is fantastic, because we don't want people coming and just, trying to acquire a large number of subscribers in a very short time, and then, we want things to happen where it moves the market forward fast, but it moves the market forward in the right way, in a more sustainable, not measured. It could be very fast, but in a way that helps the overall market grow, right? So I think that's where we're at, and the Middle East is going to become more competitive, not less competitive. I mean, we've seen, lots of intense competition, and we think that it'll get more competitive.
If anything, I'd say that the international players are learning that it's a very tough market. Right. From anecdotal conversations, that's certainly the case, and I think it is going to force us all, I second what you say, Rohit, it's going to force us all to just make sure that we are staying true to our core focus and where we know we can win, and double down on that, but carry on experimenting so that we can learn.
Yeah, I think it definitely intersects with what we were saying, that the challenges really are going to be the burden of the global players, while the local and regional players are going to have to compete in a healthy way. So if you look back at the past 10 years, globally even, the whole space has transformed and went full circle. So the streamers destroyed the studio and network system to replace it. And nothing has changed. It's just the decision making has changed. And instead of being the five, MGM, Warner, Universal, the decision making and the budgets are now Netflix, Amazon, Disney. And everything that's underneath that in the value chain is the exact same. However, for us in the local markets, having the cultural knowledge, having the proximity to our audience, having the baggage that networks like NBC have, or even Rotana, or people that sort of the libraries that they have the chance today. And Shahid has obviously fast-tracked that, but in our case, it was okay. We've seen the global streamers. And everyone else is struggling with, let's say, big libraries, right? We want to have all the movies and all the series. And in the end, another anecdotal conversation we notice with a lot of global streamers is people just go there for the top 5. So we cut the library and just kept the top 5, reduced the number of time. And in the end, today, the analysis that can be done is you have a fragmentation of the space and an inflation of content. So in a fragmented space, and this is how you can notice, even in the choices you have, the behavior. So if you're a 22-year-old in Khobar or in San Francisco, you like a bit of sports, you like your highbrow series like HBO's Game of Thrones, and you need some family shows to watch with, uncle and nieces and nephews on a Sunday. That's going to be 3 subscriptions a month because everybody is putting barriers. You're going to need to go to Netflix to watch your reality stuff. You're going to have to go on Shahid to watch your local Saudi shows. And you're going to need some 3rd subscription to watch your sports. So that's the fragmentation that is not sustainable. And that's why we go back to 10 years ago, where cable bouquet, cable stuff, you used to pick what you want amongst the channels and base it on your behavior, on your taste. So today, I think the streaming space is faced with those opportunities. Who's going to be specialized in what? What type of content is going to drive user behavior, user adoption? What is a sustainable model for a competition to be healthy? Because there's space for everyone. But for the global guys, they're going to have some serious questions to ask themselves.
Yeah, I agree. For the global, and what I'd like to say mostly is that we are not concerned anymore about contents. To me, content has to get back to be a keyword, especially for commissioners and writers, producers. Because if you look at all the biggest TV series ever realized that were real turning points in the history of television, 2004 Lost, 2007 The Wire, even before 1999, The Sopranos, and so on. These were all great shows in terms of how they challenged the audience. The first Netflix series, it was a Shakespearean drama in the White House. Okay, and now I see that we're just talking about strategies, business strategies, and so on, but we are wasting too much time without thinking that we need to get back to understand what people want, what the audience wants from us. And so that I think that we should be a bit more brave, all of us, a bit more enthusiastic and passionate in looking for new challenges in the storytelling, in grammar, in not only in topics and so on. But I never witnessed this kind of confrontation between commissioners, producers, and directors. We always talk about business models and so on.
What about on the content front? I mean, what is working for you actually? What's resonating? And perhaps we can start with Shahid actually as a platform. I mean, certainly in the UK, I mean, drama is the big thing that everyone talks about. That's what's perceived to drive kind of subscriptions. I mean, Is that the case here? What kind of drama, or is it other things? Like,
Yeah, I think drama's the base, has been the base from which we've grown. Obviously, being part of MBC Group, we've been able to really grow on the basis of the fact that we've got the expertise when it comes to drama, and we've got all the great titles. But the benefit of being Shahid is that we've also been able to experiment and produce some really awesome originals. So recently we released a title called Devil's Promise, which had some US stars in it, and also directors and writers. And that was like a horror thriller, very intricate story. Hopefully some of you saw it, an 8-part series, and it was really, really intense, and the audiences loved it. It was very different. We also did recently an adaptation of The Office for the Kingdom, and that's created a ton of talkability, and really, we've had such amazing feedback from our audiences. So we do have drama as a base, but as we've grown, we've started to now really look at, what are the different audiences that we're talking to, which are the ones that we want to bet, and therefore produce content specifically to talk to them and attract them, and which are the ones that we're potentially going to be less aggressive. But certainly our originals have performed incredibly well. And then we do have library. I disagree slightly with you, Karim, because I do think we get a lot of viewership on our library. As much as people watch the recent titles because they want to, be part of the current conversation, there's a lot of users that go back to library and default to, the titles that they know and they love and they're comfortable watching. So we still benefit a lot from that. And then I think any good streamer knows that they need to have a complement of sports and live content to round up the experience, and we're very lucky to have those, and that does incredibly well for us as well. So as a kind of total package, that's what's working for us. But you'll see a lot more from us in terms of our Shahid originals. We continuously testing, and we're gaining some real good traction there.
How many originals are you doing a year, roughly?
Oh gosh, I think around about 20 big ones that you'll hear about. Right. A few more, but yeah, that you'll hear about. 20.
And do you think that is going? Are you going to invest more?
Yeah. Over time, that's where we want to continue investing. Yeah, original content does drive pull, and it's part of the value equation. So it's certainly where we'll carry on investing.
And how about for View? What's the kind of content strategy there? What's kind of working? How important are originals? And what's resonating with audiences, really?
So I think for us, local drama and comedy is something that's worked really, really well. I mean, from the first year that we entered the market, we started producing originals. We produced an original in Saudi called Dune a few years ago. We've done a lot of work in Egypt and continue to do so. So that's something that is common across, I think, quite a few platforms where you will see local storytelling done well, working. We also are seeing growing certain niches like the Korean content dubbed in Arabic really working well, especially in the GCC, especially among women. So that's been a good, interesting point for us. And then we build on other types of content that we have. I think there is an opportunity for everyone in the ecosystem to do more in movies. I think the more movies are produced, that's better for all of us. I want to take this opportunity to just give you, touch upon a little bit more about the content conversation and how, no one knows exactly what the sweet spot in streaming is, from based on all what we're saying and what you're reading everywhere. Not Reed Hastings, not Bob Iger, nobody, right? And that's the reason I come to work every day, because you're in an industry where even the good and great don't know exactly what's going to work. That's a huge opportunity for everybody, right? Now, an interesting thing we noticed a year ago. There's a 2015 series called Dr. Foster, a BBC show, right? We co-produced that with a Korean company called JTBC. The Korean version was extremely popular in Korea. It worked fantastically well for us in all of our Southeast Asian markets. And what happened? Today there are three adaptations of the Korean version. View did an adaptation called Broken Marriage Vow of the Korean version of the original BBC Dr. Foster, which has broken all our viewing records in Philippines and won awards. Disney Plus is doing an adaptation of the same Korean version in Indonesia, and a local Thai broadcaster is doing an adaptation of that. So my point is, in terms of what's working, we have to have storytelling as a central part of the conversation, and the storytelling adapted. Why did the Korean version work better for all of these emerging markets? Because the way the script is adapted, the cultural nuances they've taken into consideration, the pace, so on and so forth, is more tuned towards all of these things. So I think what we are noticing is that, hold on a minute, innovation will come from places you least expect, right? And there are real examples of this. I'm giving you an example that we've experienced very close at hand. I'm sure there are similar examples. So going back to how you compete, going to what will work and what's working, I think it's just also a moving goalpost. Right? It is a moving goalpost. And while certain fundamentals are going to be there, that well-produced drama, local relevant storytelling, and it's not necessarily about the biggest budgets. Right? It's about how unique the story is. Right? The quality has to be good, but it is not only if you put the same amount of money that a Hollywood studio is producing per episode. Is that you don't have to. It's not competing dollar for dollar.
How much original content are you doing in the Middle East area?
So right now, this year we will end up doing between we do about 15 series, right? And what we do is we do a lot of series in partnership with television broadcasters. There's also what's working. We're an AVOD plus an SVOD model. So a lot of the content that works very well for television works very well for AVOD. So you don't, at the end of the day, the consumer is the same. Just because there's now streaming, that doesn't mean doesn't like the kind of stories that he's been watching on television. So, you don't have to, append everything and make it completely different from what we've been doing all these years, because we have been doing a lot of good things and doing them well. So continue to what's working. I think we like to partner with a lot of local producers from each of the individual markets and big broadcasters. And that's a model that we've taken forward, and we will continue to expand on that. We want to do more movies. So it's fantastic that the kingdom is opened up in terms of the number of screens that are coming there, because that, I think, will lift the overall streaming ecosystem for everybody. If there's more movies, we'll all be able to grow it faster.
Why will more exhibition help the streaming sector there?
The Middle East is truly, I think people use the word unique a lot, but very few things are unique. But I do think what is unique is the situation with movies in the Middle East. Right. The biggest market is only recently opened up in terms of theatrical exhibition. The number of films is less than, probably close to around 50, produced all over MENA, which is too small for such a region, right? I come from India, where we produced, I think even in southern India produces 800 films, and God knows how many films Bollywood produces, right? So there's huge opportunity, even if you look at wherever you compare. So I think what films will do, it will allow us windowing. So windowing in theatrical is going to help not only because of monetization, but audiences will be exposed to different stories. That is going to help everyone. The more audiences see different types of stories on the big screen, it will help grow AVOD, it will help grow SVOD, it will help grow all kinds of parts of the ecosystem. That's what
I think it will allow for interesting partnerships. It's something that we eyeing quite closely as well. And I think it allows the cinemas, particularly reviving here in the kingdom, it allows users to also be able to consume the content in a different experience, and then come to the streamer and experience it again differently and relive it. So
because you're financing films, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got some good partnerships in place.
Yeah.
And the idea is exactly to allow for different windowing, to allow for greater brand exposure, and to also meet the users where they are. I think it's very arrogant to assume that users only like to watch content on one platform. I think in general, users have a preferred platform. If that's OTT, you obviously like to watch your content on your own terms, on your own time, by yourself, or maybe with someone else. But that doesn't mean that you don't want to watch a family show with your family at a particular time of the day in front of the TV, and it certainly doesn't mean that you don't want to go and experience a blockbuster in a movie. So we obviously are very aware of that, and we've got we're continuously testing and exploring partnerships that allows us to meet the users where they are.
And Kareem, how about you for content? What's working for you? What kind of content is resonating with your kind of?
We always say we never have the pretension to know what works, but we know what doesn't work. And that's the privilege of being the streamer, is you have that data-driven kind of, also another myth, but data has its limits, especially if you look at cinema, you look at the explosion of theatrical, and here in the region, specifically here in Saudi, there's an inverted situation where most of Europe and the Western markets right now are faced with massive windowing issues. So where you have the Netflix, Amazon, Disney that are basically devoured the theatrical window, where back in the days you would have 3 to 6 months to recoup on a movie. So let's say you invested 5-10 million to make a feature film. You would have 3 to 6 months to recoup that at the box office, then another 3 months for TVOD to maybe make some direct sales and transactions, and then they would end up on the platforms. That value chain still exists here, very strongly, and I think it will be reinforced with the Saudi theatrical expansion right now. Of course, it's going to need the distributors to fall in line. It's going to need a lot more content production. But for us, when it comes to our content strategy, just to go back to that, we have less pressure and we operate differently than you guys or the global streamers, because we're not in the rat race of subscribers where we need absolute original content on our platform to enhance the numbers. However, our original content strategy serves as a way for us to enter that space, to enter to build the value chain. So what we've done is we have 2 tiers of original content. So we have, let's say, a specific budget and lower, which are the small local shows. We either distribute on our platforms or even openly on YouTube and other platforms. And the more ambitious projects, so I would say, 2 million plus on a series or a feature, we actually reserve that and for the global guys. So we're focused on development, not on production. So we have a writer's room, which we've been encouraging every studio and every player to invest in heavily. Writers is what's needed right now. There's talent, there's technical, you have NEOM, you have studios everywhere, you have facilities we're good at that. We have great technical crews. However, the writing is where the compelling stories are going to happen, where the disruption is going to happen, and where also the differentiation from the global guys is going to happen. And we've decided to carve out that segment, specialize in it, and make our writer's room available to everybody. So we've pitched to NBC, we've pitched to Netflix, we've pitched to Amazon. So in some perverted way, we compete with the global guys on content, but not on the streaming part. And it gives a small example of how hybrid models can go very far and sustain themselves and compete with sharks and whales. And we're in this ocean of big guys with very deep pockets, but the story is what stands out, and the user behavior is what keeps us going.
Well, but I suppose, a lot of what you're saying is quite familiar within Europe as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
suddenly
absolutely.
it's much more about partnerships and talking to other people.
Absolutely.
People are rethinking windowing again is becoming an attractive proposition, having kind of or people are thinking about introducing windowing again, having collapsed during the pandemic. I mean, a lot of what you're hearing here, I imagine,
it resonates a lot
doesn't it?
In Europe. Yeah, it's all a matter of reshaping somehow. Even in terms of contents, in terms of business models and so on, reshaping. Once you said Netflix is not going to produce with a linear free TV. Now they're producing in Italy. Yeah. Amazon as well. Now they are co-producing and so on. But there is a thing that I think we need to establish is that we don't give value to our products and to our stories when we work with the streamers. Why? Because we don't know the results. The only results we know are the top list, the top 5, the top 10, but we know that they are not really correct. And so we, and we're on my shoes of writer, producer, we should suit Netflix, Amazon, and all that at European card, because they have to give us the results. That's the thing. If not, our careers as producers and writers, they're fucked up. I mean, when there was the linear free TV, we exactly know. Okay, that series that night was 5 million. Okay, good, great. So this is why you're going to make the second season. Now you don't know it. You're just...
Giacomo, if I may just hop on the producer's boat right now and ask Natasha maybe a small question. Do you guys have, just based on that, do you guys communicate any performance to the producers you work with on original content? Or is there a metric of success that you share with them?
So I think the benefit of not being a global player is that we are far more leaning towards partnership. So we do share some data. It depends on the project that we're working on. But I mean, our objective is to make your content successful. If it's successful, then you, by definition, you're successful, we're successful. So we do share some. We can't share a ton, obviously, because a lot of it is, you know, private to our business. But we try and share as much as we can to make sure that we are providing the necessary feedback to keep the industry going and to allow for learning and for improvements.
You know, I was saying that also for one thing. The next huge ambitious challenge for European writers, producers and streamers is that we should try to create a universe concept, like in the vein of Stranger Things and so on. But they cannot, they say, the streamers tell us, no, it's not for you. Why not? I mean, and this is why, because there's this dialogue, this is always has some problems. I mean, why we can try to make a universe, a franchise, for instance. This is, to me, an important and ambitious challenge for the next years. We never did in Europe a real universe. I don't mean Marvel universe. I mean a universe. Even Stranger Things is a universe. Yeah. Game of Thrones is a universe that comes from an IP. Yeah. We weren't able to make something like that, and that is the only way to challenge and new ambitions.
I think not yet, but probably someone will. On the point about data, I think it cuts, and the producers, it cuts both ways, right? We've been in a lot of situations where the producer, you know, and we're not a global company, so we're not bound by any rules. We share a decent amount of data with our producers, but a lot of times you're in a situation where the producer wants all the data, but also says that, oh, you know, Netflix is offering me so much money. So from a producer point of view, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You need to decide what you want. If you want more visibility, you want the shows to be marketed in each and every country that they're being broadcast in, and really put a lot of effort and have more control and have a more direct relationship with the streamer and work with them to produce the shows, you may have to sacrifice certain things, you know, some things. So it's an evolving landscape, and we're seeing it changing. We've seen it changed in the last 3 months in Korea, where earlier, you know, after Squid Game, every leading Korean actor wanted to only do a global deal, because they thought that, okay, you know, I will get a deal in Hollywood after doing this series. Then they quickly realized that's not going to happen, because, you know, that doesn't. And now they're seeing the value of how, you know, what will you do to promote my show? How much of data will you give me? How will you tell me whether we can make a second season or not? So it's the landscape is changing. And I think it will, you know, it's fine, you know.
Can I'm going to open up to questions in 1 second. I want to ask one more question, and it was just about, you know, we're in Saudi Arabia, very exciting, dynamic, fast-changing market. I was just wondering whether each of you could kind of reflect on, you know, the changes that you've seen, even in the past, well, since you were last here, perhaps, and how you're kind of leaning into that change as a platform.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to kick it off. I think, you know, me personally, it changes pretty much every time I come here, and it's fascinating. And what we're doing as a platform is to really double down on understanding how the audience is changing, what is their demand, what appetite do they have, so that we can continuously meet them. I think, as we said earlier, with so much competition and so much players in the space, the one thing that it is doing is changing the audience's, I think, expectations and tastes, and exposing them to different content. And so it's important on us, and it's something we take quite seriously, is to always continuously meet the user, understand, okay, what's next in line? Like, is this just a fad, or is it a real trend? Should we be investing in it? Are users actually going to want to see this? How do we localize it? How do we make it more relevant? So I think it's a dynamic space, and certainly the younger kind of audiences are very demanding. And we spend an awful lot of time really trying to understand how do we make sure we are learning, we are evolving as the tastes are evolving, so that we can continuously continue being the #1 streamer for the audience.
Rohit, how about you?
Yeah, I came to Jeddah early this morning after 12 years. I used to come to Riyadh a lot to meet my friends from Rotana and my old company Fox, where I used to work. And for me, it's been accelerating, right? It's just been I'm gobsmacked and blown away with the amount of positive change and the impetus that this creative industry is being given right now. So I think, Natasha covered all the points from consumers and things like that. But the opportunity in the kingdom is once in a lifetime, it is transformational. So I think that is the biggest learning for a lot of people, including myself and my company. So it's about really how much of that opportunity are we able to make use of and partner with the various constituents in the ecosystem, whether it's the Film Development Commission, whether it's the local developed talent. I think Karim made a very good point about script development. Wherever the industry has been able to scale script development quickly, that has been hugely beneficial. So there are some things that we've learned in lessons where we can contribute. There are some things where we want to participate and be part of. But it's really once in a this is not going to these changes and this transformation is truly a once in a lifetime, which I think everyone is keen to. But a lot of people are keen to participate in, including our company View.
From my side, I mean, we have, I think, a bit over 3 million, 3.5 million users monthly on Cinemo's. Over 60% of them are right here in Saudi, so it's our first market. And so it's been great to put faces on the names, I guess, and but also from a producer perspective, really witness how there is so Saudi right now is really looking forward to a lot of exciting times in the sense that traditionally the region has been, if we're talking cinema and highbrow TV, it was Egypt, Lebanon, right? So Lebanon being the talent, Egypt being where the mass productions were and where the blockbusters came from. Even North Africa could even be joined as the art house and world cinema kind of scene. And I believe that what was missing always and over the past, I mean, since the 50s, 60s and the last golden age of Egyptian studio system, I think Saudi today could be the missing piece of becoming the studio entity of the Middle East. So where the studio entire system works. So where you have the facilities, where you have the budgets, where you have the commissioners, where you have that locomotive that will pull the entire rest of the train. And trickle down to, again, keep potentially the Lebanese writers to thrive even more, the Egyptian producers to get more projects, North Africa to start connecting more with the region. So that's where we see the potential, and we just hope we can be a little part of, bring our stone to the wall of how to build that ecosystem entirely.
And you, Giacomo, what's your impressions of being here, and can you see yourself producing, partnering?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing time for Saudi and all the region, obviously. We can say that since we witnessed the new, golden age of the TV series era recently in Europe, I'm talking about mostly TV series because it's the, top of the pop of the scripted production. What Karim was saying is that maybe what we weren't able to do in Europe is to cooperate and collaborate more, to make more co-productions. I know it's much more difficult because in Europe you have lots of identities. Each country has its own identity. But then if you go deep into detail, you see that they are not so relevant, these differences of identity. So I guess that film schools are important, education a lot, obviously, so to grow up in an industry, and cooperate as much as possible, collaborate.
Right, we've got time for a few questions. Can I start with this gentleman here, please? Is there a mic?
All right, you want me to set up? Okay. As a content creator, here are my concerns, and maybe I'm paranoid, and this is not something I should worry about, and then you can tell me you don't have to worry about that, or maybe it's a legitimate concern. So, as a content creator, the reason YouTube is appealing to me is because they're not going to tell me, no, your content has to be pan-Arab, so you can't make it too local. No, your content, they're not going to put too much rules on me. I can just put whatever I want, and then I can put it up, and that's it. And by the way, streaming services doesn't have to have these rules. It can be niche-y. Like every piece of content can get a certain niche, and that's fine. It doesn't have to have so many guidelines. So that's the first thing, that's the first concern that I think about as a content creator. The other thing is the hype and buzz machine. So for instance, Shahid has the empire of MBC that can invest in talk shows, and it can invest in outdoor, and it can invest in if my content can have the same hype as Rashash, and everyone's talking about it, and there's so much PR about it and whatever, that's appealing to me. You know, does the other streaming service have the same? The third thing is the level of professionalism when we have a co-production deal. So if there's logical schedules, they don't want you to finish development in 2 weeks, and they want you to finish production in like 5 days. And you know, like if they allow the production to breathe, and they supply very professional post-production and crews and stuff like that. That's also something I think about when I think about which streaming service I go to. And lastly is what my brand is being associated with the titles in the library of that streaming service. So Hulu, in America only, not in other markets, not in other territories, has the Criterion collection in America. And like, my dream as a filmmaker is to be in, I don't even care about the Oscars. If the Criterion says your movie's Criterion, that's it. Then I can die and be happy. So if I get associated with big titles like that, like then what my brand of filmmaking is associated with that's really important to me. So
it sounds like you know, on the one hand, the kind of freedom of YouTube is very, very attractive to you, but the marketing, the professionalism, and the company that you would keep.
Every streaming service has its pros and cons, and like the streaming service of other markets like India is what I don't like. Are the subscribers from the Arab world, which is my main target audience? The terms of distribution is important to me. Is syndication allowed? Like, I don't mind, like if View says, here's a budget, make this content, am I allowed after 6 months that piece of content can go to other streaming services? If it is, then that's appealing to me. But if it isn't, then I'm worried. You know what I mean? So like, these are the things I think about.
Does anybody want to take?
I can give you my short answer, which is please don't be paranoid, number one. Number two is I think we mentioned it earlier on, it's about the power of the story. If you come up with a story that we believe is going to resonate and that we can help shape in a way that goes to market that benefits both you and us, then there's absolutely a conversation to be in place. I think that because it's such a dynamic space, you'll find that the streamers have to, by definition, start becoming a lot more dynamic in their deal making as well. I certainly think that that's the case when it comes to Shahid. And I think from a creator's perspective, as NBC, we've always invested in the industry. We've got the NBC Academy, which we've created particularly in the kingdom to try and help the industry and make sure we've got the right kind of skills. You haven't necessarily seen that come through onto Shahid as much, but you will start seeing that come forward a lot more. So the creator space is one that we absolutely believe in. And you'll start seeing that a lot more going forward. So don't be paranoid, come talk to us, and be prepared to back your story if it's a really good story, and then there's always a deal to be made.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think to your earlier point about YouTube, the way I look at it is that, YouTube doesn't tell you what to put out there, but YouTube also pays you based on consumption, right? They don't give you a guarantee, they're not writing the check up front saying, this is what we produced. So it's really, you can't have your cake and it's back to my point about producers wanting to have their cake and eat it too. So you need to decide what you want to do. So if you want that unfettered ability to put whatever you want, absolutely without any creative input from the streamer, then there are, the YouTube model may work well, but that's what it is, right? from our point of view, when a streamer gets involved, a lot of times, it's not just the creative engine that's being involved. It's the data and the analytics team who are looking at how this content can perform. It's the marketing machinery, which you use the example, you quoted an example of. So it's what combination you want. As far as we're concerned about View, we've been we're not a global player. So the way we've succeeded is being innovative in our business models and innovative each market. So we're very happy to do deals with producers, with broadcasters, where they say, listen, you know what, I want to do this way, and this is how I want to use the windowing. Fantastic. Let's look at the value of each window, and if you think you can monetize that window better, or you think that collectively, it's not only even what you think. It may be what we do is we sit down and say, look, if we did this, to your point about after 6 months syndicating the content to somebody else, we could make a lot more better return on investment on the overall project. That is the kind of thing that we are doing today, and we will continue to do. So I don't think you should be paranoid. I think you should be super excited about the opportunity that's there, because there's enough people in the ecosystem who are looking to partner with creative talent and bring stories from the region to screen, not only in the region but globally.
If anything, if I can add, I think right now is the time for you to be doing this, because there's so many local players who are not constrained by, globally we only do it like this and it's a cookie cutter approach. So you should absolutely take the benefit of that. But I think in entertaining those conversations, you need to be mindful of that it's a commercial industry, right? So you want it to be commercially viable, we want it to be commercially viable. No one's out there to stifle a great idea. So it's just about, figuring out the mechanics to make it work.
One more question.
No, unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions because we have a session coming up right now, but let's give a nice round of applause for our panelists. They were awesome. And thank you guys. We have another session starting in about 20 minutes.